James Senegal once said, "Technology helps us become more efficient and productive, but our business still has a lot of art as opposed to strictly science." Are you tinkering, self-learning, self-improving, experimenting with home labbing? And do you want to become a skilled IT expert? Well, you've found your new home. This is the Home Labbers Podcast. On this show, we'll interview top experts and dig deep to learn how they got started and how they trained their IT skills as a master martial artist in a Shaolin temple. And you know what? We're going to have fun along the way. This is the Home Labbers Podcast. And now your host, Vian Du.
All right, let's do this.
Good morning, Home Labbers. Karl, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. It's a great opportunity. Cool here.
Before we dive into home labbing topic, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see what I can tell you. I'm 37 years old, working since roughly 22 years now in IT. Made my hobby to my profession, I think, somehow. I was always interested in computer and all that fancy stuff. And I then got an opportunity to have my first job in that area during my school still. And then, the next opportunity came up, and I went and real into the IT in a small, let's call it, I call it a system house. We've got customers, and we're doing everything in terms of support, like a wireless mouse without batteries, paper jamming printers, or racking and stacking hardware. So that was my first contact into IT. After several years, I changed job to go into a small startup company, a software developing company, but there I wasn't really the software developer. I was still the internal admin to keep our systems running and to keep the software at the customers up to date. And also then after several years, I felt the need to change a bit again, to get back my hands dirty, so to speak, to get back to the hardware, racking and stacking stuff, and some migration projects, and also all that things. Went good for several years, but then I felt it's now today it's all in the cloud and stuff, and then I felt another need to change the job again and became another opportunity to work in a big company, roughly 14,500 employees worldwide, and there I'm now responsible for the virtualization area, technical lead of virtualization. And I'm doing everything in the cloud, managing our data centers worldwide and some cloud stuff. And also there, some cloud development stuff. So DevOps is now at least a bit of my part. And to learn stuff, I probably needed a home lab. So I think that's all about it today.
Karl, how did you get started with home labbing, and where did you get the idea?
Good question. When I checked my blog posts, because I can't remember when I really started with the home labbing stuff, it wasn't that early. It was back in 2016 when I started my first home lab. I had some experience with Widmer tools and all the Widmer stuff there. So I tried out the Widmer workstation because my game rig was pretty good equipped with compute, which means CPU and memory. So I did some first steps there, but that felt somehow wrong. I mean, it was working. Everything what I needed was there and worked pretty well. But I thought, I do need really separate hardware for that. So I bought a new game rig and recycled the old game rig to get the separate hardware, some additional drives. That was then version 2 of my homelab, all still in my old game box. And it moved on from year to year, some upgrades there, some updates there. And when I decided to go with some servers, to buy some refurbished servers. And went on with these, was well, but still, it wasn't the right fit for me. And then I decided to go with brand new servers, everything, bought by myself, no sponsoring, unfortunately. That would be nice, but everything built by myself, installed by myself, operated also by myself, power bill also paid by myself. And there was a short history in home labbing back in 2016, and I just thought, why not try it out? Why not having some infrastructure at home? In the first way, it was more to see how it is working and what you can do with it. And someone later on, I decided to go with real stuff because of learning, because of experimenting, certification preparation and all that stuff. And that's pretty nice if you have a home lab to do at least some stuff, not on production for sure. But in your home lab, if you screw up, it's totally your fault. But you can still learn things with fixing broken things. So that's probably one of the best points in learning.
But if you think back, and what was the real reason behind this? Actually, you started with home labbing.
To be honest, there is no real reason. It was just to try out stuff. But I can justify with a reason: learning things, break things, fix things, and learning. I think that's the justifiable reason.
What was your first home lab project?
As mentioned, I started with the VMware workstation on my game rig at this time back in 2016. Started to getting some virtualized ESXi hosts with the absolute bare minimal in hardware resources, domain controller to get my own domain up and running, and some DNS stuff, DNS service. That was the pretty first steps I did in the home labbing. Yeah, I recycled my game rig, my old game rig. I've got at least some pictures on my blog where you can see the case. I bought some additional SATA controller and some shelves where I can put in the 2.5 inch discs to make it kind of hot plug, and also have a bit of more raw storage. So, for example, vSAN or so, just to have more capacity. And it was kind of Frankensteining home lab server, so to speak.
But tell us entire home lab evolution story. I know you have Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not including what you have now.
That's right. To be very honest, now I have nothing. Well, it's there in terms of hardware, but it's not in operation because my girlfriend and I just built the house and I didn't have the time to cable and rack and stack everything. But currently I'm on, let's say, version 4B. That's the most recent version. I did some IKEA shelves. They are pretty nice and pretty suitable for my hardware. And the current compute generation is some super microservice with all flash NVMe drives. And there it's just some small vSAN. It's a small vSAN cluster that runs or is capable of running additional virtualized ESXi hosts for my home lab. that's kind of the current hardware build version, so to speak.
What software and services you were running there? Beside vSun and Widmer?
For sure, a domain controller. Yeah, I'm running a domain controller as a virtual machine for just the basic services, for authentication, for user administration and stuff. Then I've got the DNS server because everything is running on DNS or relying on DNS. Then there is next also the vCenter, where I manage all the VMware stuff, ESXi hosts, not to forget. And this is pretty much it. I'm not fancy with NSX and realize automation, all that stuff. That's at least not yet planned, but still somewhere in the back of my head to probably get hands-on this stuff as well, for sure. But it's currently pretty basic.
Can you tell us about your Generation 3 as well, 2 and 1?
Yes, sure. The Generation 1 was my real first home lab, so to speak, with special hardware. As mentioned, I recycled my game rig. I had an external NAS, a Synology NAS box, and I was able to run some pretty decent virtual machines on that game rig, because gaming, you need some performance, you need some memory and a good CPU. So that was already a good and a stable foundation for the home lab. Then I installed some not sure if it's a SATA or a SAS controller. I think it was a SAS controller. I already scrapped it hardware. I can't remember really. And installed some Samsung and Crucial SSDs to have some performance cache and some capacity tier storage in that hardware. The Generation 2 was some Dell. I think it's R710 server. Yeah, R710 rack-based 710 versions of a server. Also, currently only equipped with networking, 10 gig networking, CPU and memory, no local disk, because I was running everything on a NAS. That worked pretty well. But somewhen I felt the need to have local storage for vSAN, So I installed there some disk. In the Generation 3 then, there was the upgrade on Generation 3, installing some disks, but still the same Dell servers. Some additional networking equipment because, you need 10 gig. So there's another switch to buy. And then we are already with the Generation 4, like the Supermicro stuff. In terms of performance, I was always looking for more, to be honest. It was good to have it on my game rig with the VMware Workstation to start right off and see how things going. But then I felt the need of, I need more storage, I need more RAM. So I need separate hardware just for the home lab. And then someone I had the need to, I need more servers for my home lab. I can't run everything on my game rig. So I have to see where I can get some cheap servers, because even if they are refurbished, there is a price tag on it. So long evaluation. And thankfully I had a contact in our Swiss-German VMware user group that was able to, provide me some good priced Dell servers, and I just bought them. And the next was, nice, cheap disks, okay, but they are not fast, so I need all flash, which means I need some pretty new servers with some NVMe capacity and some good networking on board. Then this led then to the Supermicro edition, what I'm currently, not yet operating, but that's the most decent and most recent version of my home. It was always performance and capacity and always the need for more.
How much knowledge have you gained while having a home lab?
That's hard to answer, to be honest. I learned much during every generation in home labbing. especially in fixing stuff that is not working, even if it should. But that's probably, well, it's totally my fault. Maybe I took the wrong cable, or maybe I plugged in the network cable into the wrong port. So it was a lot of networking, especially in the VMware area. I gained knowledge. I gained knowledge also in fixing things when some ESXi configurations were just not right. Some misconfigurations, some miscommunication between the hosts. I learned a lot in terms of storage. So it was a good chance to really gain some stuff, and probably, or hopefully, better to say hopefully, I can rack and stack my current home lab again soon to learn more, maybe even in the NSX area or some automation stuff, because that's what I'm currently working in, at least the automation part.
What is the most memorable home lab story you like to share?
That's a good one. There was, let's see when it happened. I recently, it's already some years ago. I have been contacted by VMware. I think it was Duncan Epping that contacted me about some blog post I made, and that this blog post made it up to the C-level management at VMware. And first, I was surprised that my blog post seemed to reach the higher level of management at VMware. But the reason was some other company, and I'm not finger pointing here to any company or any brand, but some company in the same area as VMware is working, used my homelab blog post to finger point to VMware, like, that vSAN crap, you can't use it, it's breaking disks, etc. And so Duncan Epping contacted me then, if it's possible to add a disclaimer to this specific blog post. That's all, well, not on the HCL, on the compatibility list, and that's not the fault of vSAN and VMware, but it's just my personal opinion, and that I'm responsible for breaking things and nothing else. And so I did. That's probably one of the most memorable point in time I had on my home lab, that some company misused my blog post to finger point and to blame VMware for their crap, how they called it, and that made it up to the C-level at VMware.
Do you have any scary or funny home lab story as well?
Well, the funny story, I have every time funny stories when I get new hardware. When I was able to find some black funds to buy some new or refurbished hardware. That's because I'm a nerd. Some funny stuff is when I have the light bulb above my head that goes on when I have an idea, or that I finally solve a problem that was grinding me and driving me nuts for days and weeks. That's things that make me happy in my home lab. When you're, I don't know, I'm not familiar with English sayings, but in the German speaking area, we've got a saying, and I'm pretty sure it's completely wrong. But if you're in a wood and you don't see a tree, if you're focusing and tunneling into a topic, into a problem, and you just can't solve it because you're too focused and too tunneled, that's my happy story always, when I'm able to finally fix something that was annoying me since days and probably weeks. And scary stuff, well, I just had recently one. It's not directly related to the home lab, but one of my Synology boxes went total orange. All the discs had their orange warning on, and that was pretty scary because that was my home NAS box where I have everything on it. And thankfully, it was just a spike in temperature. So I went on and installed some active cooling into the rack. That solved it. But it was still scary.
Can you tell us about Sharp printers as well, where you found out you can actually control a printer with VNC viewer? You wrote a blog about it?
Yes, there was something.
Yeah, I was actually surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised as well when I when I discovered this. I'm not sure when this exactly happens, but it was way back in the time when I was working as a system administrator at the system house, so to speak. It was more or less a typical customer support. I had a printer that doesn't print. Who doesn't have it from time to time? Not much of not that spectacular, but there was a nice thing when I stumbled across some things with VNC. I never tried it. Probably found it somewhere on the internet, and there was a possibility that you can connect to a Sharp printer with VNC and have the remote console in that VNC window, and you can click the menu items on that physical screen on the printer, but with your mouse remotely on your computer. And that helped me to save some time, and also running forth and back between my station and the printer to see if it's working now or what's the next message, etc. I wasn't really aware of that. I was pretty amazed that it is working like this. Not sure if it should work like this. Maybe it's a security issue. I don't know. But it was back in the day. I'm pretty sure that the print has been replaced already.
And you got 10 gig fiber internet, and you had fun story as well. Can you tell about this one?
That's right. Yeah, that was some now already some years ago. I think it was back in 2020, beginning of 2020, when some technician of that internet provider company came up. It was at the time when my girlfriend and I lived in a rental apartment. That guy knocked or ringed the bell and came in and asked me where the central electronic stuff and fuses are, because he's from that name, not naming any company here, but he's from that famous Swiss internet provider, and they are planning to install fiber optic internet. My eyes were shining, and I showed him that cabinet with the fuse and the basic internet access, and then he told me, there are some empty holes and empty connections we can use for it. Not a problem. We'll let you know when we start. Long time no hear. I think it was more or less close to a year when I saw some construction company out on the parking lot, going in and out of the garage below the building, and I, depending on that company, I was aware, or I was pretty sure that this is the fiber company that actually puts in the fiber hardware, the fiber cables, and all that stuff. And it can't go long until I can have fiber internet. It still was then some 3 or 4 months, I think, until I was able to check my living address at that time with that internet provider, if I'm already able to get fiber internet. And I just fired up a contract with them and asked them, hey guys, listen, I'm currently building a house, and is it possible to move the connection? Yeah, no problem. Just make it an address change, and that's all. You can take out your modem, put it into the new place, plug it in, and forget it. all fine. And it was when we finally moved into our house, I was, well, not able to just plug it in because it didn't really work. They had to initialize my new connection first. And then I wanted to have another router. So I bought another router because at this time, the provider was able to provide 10 gigs to the building or to the home, fiber to the home, but their router wasn't able to handle it. He can receive, but he can't forward it like the 10 gig speed to your local network. There was 4 1 gig ports, another 2.5 gig port, and Wi-Fi 6. And if you have connections everywhere, then you can maybe saturate the 10 gig link. But I want like a media converter. I want the glass connection, and I want the Ethernet port that really blows this 10 gig into my homelab or home network for sure. So category 7 cables everywhere in every room. And I had to buy another router for sure. And there wasn't just plug and play, unfortunately. But with some tinkering and some looking around, also finding stuff on the internet, thankfully, I was able to get it up and running. Now I've got 10 gig. Unfortunately, not real 10 gig because of my firewall. The Ubiquiti can't handle that much of a traffic, unfortunately. Still looking for another firewall, but at least I could have it.
What do others think about you when they see your home lab?
Well, to be honest, I didn't show my home lab to many people. My girlfriend knows that I've got some hardware. My coworkers know that I've got some hardware. Maybe I showed them some pictures, but to be honest, they take it as it is. Yeah, okay, it's service and it's hardware, and you're just a bloody nerd. So they take it as it is. They are not complaining. They are not making fun of it. So I'm happy. It's okay for me.
So you're not asking why you're collecting old enterprise hardware.
Yeah, maybe yes. Maybe they think about, okay, I wouldn't spend that much money as you did for such things, but easy. I'm making more fun of it because I've got a 10 gig fiber connection. I could do an offsite backup of our company. So if they would spend some money in my garage, they could spend some storage system and do their offline backup. Don't know.
Do you know how much power takes your home lab?
I don't have a clue. I never measured the power usage. I just paid the bills, and it doesn't felt that much, but probably with some, if I'm able to get some hands-on into some like intelligent PDUs that has a bit more than just cables in it, but also some electronic device that measures the actual power usage. Then I can do some measurement. I just have to roughly guess like maybe 200 watts per server, maybe a bit less. If I'm driving the super micro, then I'm probably a bit less than 200 watts. It's 3 servers, some networking equipment that doesn't eat that much power, and a NAS box, but that's also not that much of power. So probably 800 to 1000 watts, maybe. At least when I'm driving it to the max, when I'm fully operating virtual machines and they really burn CPU, then probably it's up to 1000 watts or so, maybe. But if the thing's just idling, then we're probably down by 300, 400 watts. I don't know. But that's a good idea. I have to take care about that.
Do you have OPS as well, uninterrupted power supply?
Not for the home lab currently, but still looking for something that's not yet broken, but still have some lifetime in with the batteries. For my current I call it the basic home rack with the internet access, the fiber port, the router, the central switch for all my building cabling. There I've got a nice and small APC UPS. Nothing intelligent. There is no network connection on that UPS, but it's just mainly for surge protection. If there is some power loss or so, that my devices doesn't kill themselves, or if there is some lightning and thunderstorms in the area, and you never know when somewhere in the close proximity lightning hits a building or so, it can still kill your devices at home, and at least the expensive devices are not going to be killed, hopefully. I don't know. It never happened, so I can't say if it's working or not. Hopefully it's working, but I don't have to use it.
I have a question. What is homelab for you?
What is homelab for me? Well, it's money. It always costs money, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, especially when you're I know home labs out there in the field, in the internet, and from other people I know that they are always going with refurbished hardware, that they are looking even for secondhand hard drives, even when they are cheap and great capacity, etc. They don't have an idea how long they are going to work, and that's especially with discs. I want to have new discs just to make sure they have at least some years of operation capacity and capability. So that's the price tag. It needs power, it needs space, and at least now, as I'm not operating it in the house but out in the garage, there is not that high, not such a high WAF acceptance factor. So I don't have to take much care of that WAF acceptance factor, but that can always happen. So WAF acceptance factor is always a point to consider. And homelab is also often frustrating, especially if you break things and you just don't immediately see what has been broken or what you just broke. Troubleshooting, but overall, it's learning. In my eyes, it's learning. You assemble hardware, which is probably easy. You install that hardware. You operate that hardware. You have your hypervisors. You have your virtual machines, your virtual services on these hypervisors. You build everything by yourself, manually, or maybe some automation with Terraform, Ansible, or you name it. Some stuff you can do with it, and it's like the roof. The roof is learning. No matter how many times you break things, you can fix it. You learn with fixing it. If you're trying out new stuff, you learn with that new stuff. So no matter the cost or the annoying stuff you experience, it's at the end, it's learning.
What one piece of advice would you give for beginner home labbers?
Okay. There is a huge list of possible advices I could provide to new home labbers. But sure, one advice is probably don't spend that much money. You can start already with a lot of things with very low budget. For example, VMware Workstation can help you already with some stuff. It's not expensive. And if you make it into the vExpert, for example, if you're able to get the vExpert award, you get a huge list of licenses, all valid for 1 year. So that's also a good thing. And VMAC Advantage, for example, $200, and you've got also a huge list of software you can use for your home lab. So at the end, it's really, you can start with more or less no money at all and build your first home lab, looking with trying out things and looking for how things work until you think, okay, now I've got the big money. Now I want to have stuff. Easy, do it. But you don't have to start with a huge budget. You can start small, no problem.
You mentioned something, a huge cloud project. Are you allowed to share this information as well?
That's right. I'm currently pretty busy in the company where I'm working with a huge cloud project. We are migrating from one cloud provider to another. And for this, I'm in the so-called cloud core team, which is developing stuff on the cloud, like security policies, networking, some automation stuff, just to have a pretty good governance on our public cloud, to have the stuff run secure. And for example, also things like least privilege access is a topic where we are working on. And in different other teams, we've got the migration teams that are then migrating the workloads from cloud A to cloud B. And we are, as mentioned, we're in the beginning, we're about 14,500 employees worldwide. And we're also operating our data centers worldwide, which means we're operating throughout more or less every time zone. That doesn't make it easy or easier for migration, but we can automate things, and we're in a good contact with all the service owners, application owners, etc., to have the stuff migrated on time. It's a pretty huge project and keeps us pretty busy, at least until I think fall this year. So we'll see how it goes. And it's not the only project. I'm working in parallel on different other projects, not that big, but still no one ain't got time for everything. So I have to split up myself sometimes, but it's okay.
Karl, thank you so much for joining and sharing. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. Have a great day as well. And as mentioned, start low with your home lab. Don't overspend it. Bye.
You've been listening to the Home Labbers Podcast. Our passion is to interview the leading IT experts and get tech enthusiasts all the information they need to become an expert. So if you run at-home enterprise hardware and software and you like tinkering and self-learning, then you've found your new podcast. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up the website at VOnDo.tech, on Twitter at #VOnDoTrending and #HomeLab. See you next time on the Home Labbers Podcast.